For 3 straight days, 20 of the best paintball teams in the world have been battling for a spot in the finals. Now, only 2 remain, each focused on a goal, winning the match and the coveted championship trophy.
There's no trial and error. There's no mistakes that can be made. Everybody's got to be locked in and dialed and do their job.
We're extremely happy to be in the finals of the best league in the world. And of course, we are hungry for that victory.
I'm confident because I believe in myself. I believe in my teammates. We all care about each other and what we're here to do.
As long as we play smart against them, I think that we can come home with a victory.
2 talented teams, but only one will walk away with the championship trophy. This is the 2024 Major League Paintball Atlantic City Open.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall. Excited for our guest today. It's Justin Rabackoff, MVP. The 2 wins in a row. Red Legion is on a tear. They're the best team in the game. And as far as the series standings is concerned, they're the best by a decent margin. I don't know if it would take an absolute catastrophe for them the next 2 events, either in Chicago or World Cup, double points at World Cup. But yeah, I mean, they could just run away with this series title. And Justin Rabackoff, bringing him on, he has been the linchpin in so many different ways. So we're going to be discussing a lot of things today. We're going to be discussing, obviously, the 2 wins for Red Legion. We're going to be discussing the league, the brackets. Also, make sure to mark your calendars, set your DVRs, as it's August 3rd and 4th. Kind of an interesting time for us to be airing, but that's why we need as much help from the community as we possibly can. So it's going to be 10 p.m. Pacific time and 1 a.m. Eastern, 3rd and 4th of August. And yeah, let everyone know across your social media platforms. This is a big thing for our industry. And if we can get a really good turnout for that time, it could mean more of these shows, and it just helps every company, every team, every field all the way across the world. So please do us a solid. And as we always say, preach that paintball gospel. And then also we're going to be having a bit of a name change here for Go Sports. We're going to be changing it over to Major League Paintball Plus, which I was a big fan of. So yeah, we'll give you guys a little bit more information. Nothing's going to change. You're going to see, we're going to be doing a little bit more stuff, but other than that, nothing's going to change. You're going to be getting the same shows. But we are going to be changing the name because Major League Paintball, it just has a much better ring to it. So, but Go Sports will still be producing these shows. All right. So without any further ado, let's bring Justin Rabackoff, aka J-Rab, here into this discussion. And yeah, really looking forward to picking his brain on a lot of things. And, so J-Rab, we got a lot to talk about here. But thank you so much for joining us, bro. How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing good. I gotta say I've been watching this The Sopranos lately, and in 2024 it really holds up.
Dude, I haven't seen Sopranos in a while, but I watched when it was on TV, I watched every episode, and everyone's kind of, I don't know did you watch it before, or is this your first watch?
No, this is my first watch. So it's like, and it holds up, and I'm binging it right now, and it's actually incredible. I mean, obviously I couldn't watch it as a kid. It came out in 1999, so I was too young to be watching shows like that. My dad wouldn't let me. So finally watching it now, and it's an incredible show. Really is. Yeah.
And it was a trendsetter too. I mean, that was kind of that one of the shows early on that kind of set the bar. It's not any sort of spoiler or anything, but the last episode, the season finale of the last season, is a bit controversial. So I'm looking forward to touching base with you when you get to that and see what you think about the very, very last episode.
Or like different?
No, it's not that. I mean, Game of Thrones, the season finale, which was kind of, I wouldn't say universally panned, but pretty much most people were like, and it wasn't even just it was like the way the last season went. And also the last episode was too dark. I remember watching it and I'm like, oh, man, I can't turn the brightness on my television up. And I'm like, are you guys seeing this? Or is this just me? Am I having a stroke right now? Like, why is this so dark? And then they came, it was just ridiculous. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't mind the turn of one. No spoiler. I don't want to give things away because I love fictional things, books and movies and shows, but I didn't really mean the turn for one of the main characters into the darkness, but Aluja, you still there, bud?
I'm here.
It looks like you're still there. Yeah, but yeah, I didn't mind the turn into darkness because sometimes that happens. Anyway, but it was just a kind of lazy story writing. This the plot twists and how they just abandoned some plots. Like they're like, oh, we got to sew up this plot line right here, or let's just completely we spent 4 seasons building up this plot for this. Let's just forget all about that. We don't even need to tie that story up. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
I can't stand that. I can't stand it when they do that.
Yeah, it's so annoying. And then it was also frustrating because I read all the books, and then George R. R. Martin's now just like rolling around in his like smog hoard of gold underneath the mountain. I know that's Lord of the Rings and not, but he's just so rich that he's old, so he's just like, dude, I know it's taken me 5 years to write this last book, but I'm just not going to put this last book. And the rest of like the people that read all the books were like, dude, can you put the last book out? Like at least put it out before they get to that season, and he couldn't do it.
They're
I was like,
begging.
Yeah.
He still hasn't finished it.
So yeah, still hasn't finished it. As far as I know, I kind of gave up. Though I would buy my dad those books every year. I buy him books every year, keeps his mind sharp. He's getting old. And every year I'd give him, this like 600-page book. And so when I was like, oh, I hear George R. R. Martin's going to finish this last one, because he reads everything I buy him. So he's reading all these books, but he like begrudgingly does it. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know, though. He may die before he finishes that last book. And my dad's pretty ruthless. And he was like, to be honest, I hope he does, And I was like, Dad, come on, dude. Why you absolute savage? Why would you say that? Before we jump into the paintball conversation, I would say, and this is for anyone out there that hasn't seen this, because it is an old show at this point in time. If you really like Sopranos, you should watch The Wire. Another show that was
I was just going to bring
your
that
dad
up.
probably wouldn't. Have you seen it?
That's another one that it came out during a time where I wasn't watching TV like that, or those kind of shows. I couldn't watch it like as a kid. So like that's another one that after I finish The Sopranos, which is probably going to take me a while, that I'm gonna have to watch that one too. Does that one still hold up in 2024 or what?
Well, I haven't seen it in years, but I did watch. It's so good. It's still considered one of the, Hallmark greatest TV shows that have ever done. And then the guy that wrote, it was also fascinating because it was created by, it was like a guy that worked in Baltimore as a reporter. And then the other writer on it was a cop in Baltimore. And so it's incredibly realistic. Like it's one of the most realistic shows you're ever going to watch. It does have a lot of older technology and kind of a lot of stuff that's not honest. And I would just say also just give it a little bit of time, because it's like any good piece of fiction. You have to build up the characters and the drama. It doesn't just jump into craziness. But
of course.
And it's also interesting because every season, there's 5 seasons, and every season it builds upon the last one, but it goes deeper. So it's not just about those characters, it's about the city of Baltimore itself, which is which is one of the most violent cities that we have, especially during that time period. Anyway, it's really, really good. So yeah, highly recommend The Wire if you're a fan of Sopranos. All right, so let's jump into this. First of all, the first question I got to ask you is like, what type of redemption does everyone feel right now, as far as the vibe on the team is concerned, on Red Legion, with how good you guys are right now and winning those 2 events? And not even it wasn't even yes, you guys won both the events, but you guys went a plus 29 at the actual Atlantic City, and then a plus 19 cumulatively for Texas. So we're kind of sitting close to plus 40, plus 38 for the last 2 events, meaning that you've scored, through 2 events, you've scored 38 points, which is an insane point differential for a team. That's dominance right there. Yeah. Undefeated the whole time. I mean, it's just kind of like a, Legion by first degree murder. Now, you guys did have a few struggles here and there and a couple close games, but for the most part, it was Legion by first degree murder in almost every single game you played. So just kind of, how's the vibe on the squad right now, considering 2019 Texas, strangely enough, was the last time the team won an event, and it was so hard to get that starting 5 there. And then they pick you up, and then now, you guys are just on one and the best team in the world currently.
Well, I will say, I'll start off and say that we were not expecting any wins relatively soon, right? We were not expecting that at all. It was not expected by our chief, by our coaches, by the players. I don't think we were expecting anything even from this year. It was really a matter of how well we can put together the game plan and go out and execute. So we really focused on that in practice. We really focused on that in the tournament, even going into Sunday. It was like, win or lose, we need to focus on our game plan, right? So like, no matter what it was, that's what Chief would say the first thing in the morning before we would go there on Sundays. Um, so I think the vibe on the team is just kind of, we're exceeding expectations, and everyone's like not really excited. It's more of the work that we've been putting in and the time that we're putting in is like coming to fruition a lot faster than we anticipated. So it's more of like a maybe of a shock to the system from where we thought we would be and where we're actually at. And you use the word, and you quoted, dominating. uh I am the
Dominating.
last person to expect that to be where we are after 3 events. I would not expect that. I'm sure our chief did not expect that. And I'm sure everybody in the organization did not expect that. It just kind of, fallen in those places, and it's worked out perfectly, really. The piece of me just coming onto the team, making that fifth man on the squad, it just, worked out a lot better than, even I anticipated, or I think everybody, because I think in the off season as well, a lot of people just wrote off the move of me going there. The big talk was Aftershock, Aftershock building their team and how they were gonna, dominate the circuit, and like they were gonna be the team to beat, even though Dynasty has been winning the last, however long they've been,
4 years.
winning. So yeah. So the move of me going to Red Legion was a little bit under the radar, and I think that, maybe work a little bit harder, like individually, wanted me to work a little bit harder, because I think people may have, I guess, from my perspective, kind of maybe wrote me off a little bit. So that was a little bit of a motivation for me to get out there to really push myself and push myself to another level. Um, and I think that that's just showing in my play right now, and so I'm really happy with where I'm at. I think the team's happy, the coaches are happy, and we're on top of it right now, and we just got to continue to do what we're doing, and I don't see how much can get in the way of that currently.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways and questions I have based on what you just said. I mean, one is, I think the first one is, from I mean, dude, we played together when you first went pro back in the day. You've been doing this since you were 16 years old. I mean, like, I remember you were getting reps, and when I sing your praises or talk about your history, I'm like, dude, Justin Rabackoff was out there playing in the woods against us when he was like 9, 10 years old. He grew up hard in this game. And obviously played with your dad, knowing your dad since I was 19, 18, 19, 20 years old. And so, but you've been doing this for so long, and you've won so much. You've been an MVP. You've been a guy that's getting paid to play this game for a long time. And to me, I feel, what's the motivation for you? Because you kind of look fired up this year. We talked a little bit in that big break when they were resetting for the TV show. We talked a little bit about this, but you're kind of playing with that chip on your shoulder again. And yeah, I know you're getting paid, but it's not like you're getting paid so much that you're like, I got to go out here and work my ass off for this $3 million this year that, that Sergey's getting me. Like, that's not the case, like, that's not it. And so I know you're not motivated for the month. It's not the paycheck. And I'm just kind of wondering,
it never has been,
like, where is the, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, where is this newfound, fountain of energy and kind of intensity that you're bringing to these performances?
I think the biggest thing is this is going to go back, like, years, obviously. I think it's the day that I decided that I was going to make this mine, and I was going to make this my career, and then there was no looking back. I tried school for a little bit and tried things here and there that just didn't resonate with me. But once I finally realized that, like, hey, this is, what I want to do, I kind of made that decision. So the motivation is always there because this is what I chose. Right. So, with that being said, it's just I have to continue to create motivation for myself because I know that, years ago that I made that decision and that there was no, turning back or looking back. And I need to make sure that in that moment with the decision that I made, that I was going to be happy with that decision, even, years, decades down the road. And I've managed to continue to do that and continue to motivate. Have there been lapse in motivation here and there? Sure, that happens to everybody in every career in the history of ever, right? So, with that being said, the decisions were made, and I just have to continue to work hard and continue to motivate myself because there's not going to be anyone that's going to be there like behind my back or over my shoulder trying to motivate me. It has to come from within.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit different too when you're climbing the mountain for the first time. And I was talking about how I was on the coaches show on Tuesday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Ryan Gray, Mike Bianca doing a great job. Lots of interesting insight because those are two great minds for the game. But we kind of talked a little bit about some of this stuff, but it's like, because sometimes people be like, all right, Matty, we understand that, because anytime Dynasty comes up, I'm like, I have to talk about how well they've done. And I have to talk about it because that's the reality, because it's such an inspiring
Right.
story for everyone that plays the game. Because, when we had the change, so the history of paintball, in a tiny fraction of the time we could spend talking about it, like there was a big change in the early 2000s when we went from 10 man, which died. I mean, you can still go play 10 man, and thank God. Shout out to the ICPL, Tim Montresor, and Tom Cole and all the people behind that. But, and that's an awesome format. But in the striving for more visibility and for a format that was more quote unquote entertaining, we moved into this X-Ball realm. And then during that mid 2000s, it definitely was kind of a younger player's game, just because that was kind of the meta, as you could say. Oh, let's pick up these young, fast dudes, send them the snake every single point. We had a bunch of new names come into the game. And then now with Dynasty and what, some of the guys on Legion are doing, because they're not exactly spring chickens anymore, but it just kind of goes to show you that if you're good at this, you can be good at it for a long time. I mean, the fact that Dynasty has had this resurgence, and now Legion having this resurgence, with a bunch of dudes that are either middle-aged or approaching middle age, it kind of reminds me of when the UFC started pumping out these champions that were in their, late 30s and early 40s, because you had to master so many skill sets in order to be elite at that specific sport. And it just kind of goes to show you. So, but since, climbing that mountain again, especially as you're getting up there and it's like harder to go out on a Wednesday and shoot pie plates, than when you were 20 years old, or do the, those basic mundane drills that kind of keep you sharp, and that sort of stuff. But it's like, and that's what's kind of cool to kind of see you, particularly because I've known you since you were a kid, and to see you now, kind of through force of will and your skill and experience, along with Malloy and Kirill, and it's just kind of cool to see that, and it's like, we've spoken about this off camera a bunch of times, and this is kind of one of those things that it's like, and I'm down to go and talk about this as much as you would like, because I've had some struggles with this, and I got to be in the public eye all the time, and I've had to deal with stuff when I was playing back in the day, and I had anxiety when I was a kid, but it was like, you've also had to fight through mental struggles as well too, dealing with anxiety, and that a lot of people don't know about. And there may be some people out there struggling with that right now. And so that's why I'm like getting chills even talking about this, because to see you, as a kid go up and make your splash so early, and we're like, yeah, this is a phenom right here, man. Like, this dude was tailor-made to play this game. He's got it in his dad was good. It's in his blood. And then you became this all-star, like one of the best highly paid players in the game. And then, you've had your run on different teams, but then to know that you were dealing with some anxiety, and then to see you, fix it enough that here you are back and dominating again, because the clinic that you guys have put on, I actually went and checked. So you guys had a +2 at the first event, taken third, but you guys are sitting at a +40 right now, overall for the year through 3 events, with a gigantic lead on the series title race. So I don't know how much, again, it's tough to talk about this sort of stuff, but it could help some people out there. How do you deal with the anxiety of life and the anxiety of having to, because there's a lot of pressure on you personally. It's like, oh, I gotta go out here and play the superstar again, be this,
Yeah.
be this elite dude. Like, oh, I'm the best guy out here. Okay, damn it. All right, let me go be the best guy again.
So
Like, it's tough to climb that mountain.
yeah. So for me, I when I first started to deal with anxiety, and this is it's actually a great conversation point that leads into what I just brought up. First started dealing with anxiety when I was deciding whether I was going to move on to something different or whether I was going to, you know, stay in paintball and then make this my career. Um, and I think it was more that view of like it was like an existential crisis almost, where I had to
For
decide
sure.
like, do I leave the thing that I absolutely love to go and do something else that I may like I may not like, and I just have to do it because this is what's going to pay the bills, or do I do everything in my power to live as comfortably as possible, continue to play paintball, and know that this is the one thing in my life that I absolutely love above everything else. And I really struggled with that. I fought with myself on that. And I think that's where a lot of my anxiety stemmed from. And then things just kind of like snowballed in terms of my anxiety. Then I had like a really serious, where I was on the plane and we practically almost went down. Like the pilot came on, the oxygen things came out, and I think it just kind of snowballed. And it was more of that. Then I was afraid to fly, and I was like, if I can't fly, how can I play paintball? Right. And it was all of
Yeah.
these things just snowballing over. And you know the saying, when it rains, it pours, right? So with all of
Yeah.
that, it just kind of it was like compounded over and over and over with this anxiety. And I as a male, there's like this stigma that we're supposed to be, strong, and we're supposed to be alpha, and we're not supposed to need help because we need to be able to deal with this stuff by ourselves. And especially in my family, I come from like a hard family from which a lot of this is not talked about at all. Feelings weren't talked about, stuff like that. It wasn't until later that my family started getting more in touch with their feelings. But growing up, it was the exact opposite of that. So we were told to push it down, right? So and things like that. So you know when you're constantly having to push things down, you're never dealing with them, and those things like all of a sudden in droves come piling out, right? Especially when you're dealing with things like anxiety. Like I said, when it rains it pours, and it pours and it all comes out. So I think the biggest thing is that I would say is I wish that there was somebody, when I was dealing with these things, that somebody could have said, hey, it's okay that you're going through this. It's okay that you may need help, that you need to seek help or whatever. Um, and if you are dealing with something like that, if you are struggling with something like that, then and you're worried about a stigma or whatever, don't be afraid. Just here's what I'll say, just try it. Right. And what I did is I went and got therapy. I was prescribed Xanax and things like that to help deal with it. These days, I don't have really anxiety anymore. I've controlled all of that, those emotions. I figured out exactly, what I want in life, and all of those, like I said, existential crisis that I was dealing with, that was like, creating that anxiety. I was able to get over with, communication, different forms of, stress management, things like that. So it's okay to seek help, to have these things that can help you in your life, because I promise you it will, whether you're in your career or in paintball or your family, your children. These things can help better your lives. It's been proven over and over and over again, especially as of late with, mental health awareness. So if you're concerned, or you have an idea like, hey, maybe I am struggling with something like that, it costs nothing to get a consultation, right? It really does cost nothing to get a consultation. So I suggest, seeking, just see what's out there, talk to somebody, because it really may help you deal with these things. It might not be, you'll get over it in a couple of weeks, couple of months. I mean, for me, it took me years. So, but now I don't actually, struggle with anxiety or any of this stuff anymore, because I figured out how to deal with it. I'm no longer on any of these, like, medications or anything. So these are things that you can absolutely overcome. It's just something that, you need possibly to seek help and talk to somebody about.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like having to deal. And I mean, I feel a lot of the stuff you're saying. I've been through similar situations, had traumatic things happen when I was younger, and then pushed it down. You know, had grew up in, my mom was great as far as, you grew up in a single dad household. It's like, and my mom was
Yep.
very loving, but my dad, and I love him to death, but he was definitely, and he just, because that's how he handles things, because he can get away with that. But it's that you push it down and just, eat the pain, and that's not the
Yeah.
best way necessarily to go about
Oh,
fixing whatever it is. It can make it worse, and that's kind of the situation.
absolutely.
And then obviously you want to use, if it's like, I never really liked Xanax just because it put like a lead weight over my intellect. I always felt like a zombie
Yeah.
anytime I took that. And so, it was just um yeah,
For me, I
but
had to
it's
I
basically,
played
it's a
on it.
bridge. It's like a bridge. It's like a bridge to
Yeah.
get you to a better place. So you was it well, because that
Yeah.
was, I'm just wondering, was there a
I played
trigger?
on it. I had to play on it.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's like for
when
me,
we
I
were
mean,
winning on Impact,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, when we were winning on Impact for like 2 years, I was taking it every day. So I was taking it even before we played, because I would get anxiety so bad before matches. And I'm not talking butterflies, like, the normal stuff that, people get
Like a
before,
panic
any
attack,
sports event,
like a
or
like a legit, like, I'm
yeah,
gonna die,
like
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 I'm gonna die right
like
now.
legit, yeah, like legit, like, if I don't walk away from this, I might fall over here. It's like, panic attacks
Yeah.
are a serious thing, and, like, they can really affect your body and your mind. So, if you are dealing with something like, if you are already in that phase where you're dealing with something like that, I suggest definitely seeking and getting help. But I had to play on it. I had to take it before planes. I was taking it constantly, and I was still able to perform at a high level even with it on. So these aren't things that, you know in my mind, and it's different for everybody. They didn't dull my senses. They didn't, and you just take, just enough for what you need to get you through, and you can still perform at the highest level, whether it's, like I said, your family, your career, a sporting event, no matter what it is. Like, these things are available, so you can take them and still go on with your normal day, and it's not going to affect you.
Did you ever try breathing exercises? And this sounds like some woo-woo hippie BS, but did you ever try
Yeah.
it? Because that was like, honestly, that was the
So
most. I still use breathing exercises to this day. I don't know if you have gone down that road yet, but and it's almost like a
um
hack. It's like literally a hack for your nervous
yeah.
system.
Yeah, so I as I was stating before, I had panic attacks. So before I, went and saw somebody and got medication, I tried everything, because it was a stigma. Like, I don't need help. Like, I can get over this. Like, I'm strong enough that I don't have to deal with this. So I tried everything, from meditation to breathing exercises to yoga, which I absolutely love, by the way. I think even if you don't have anxiety or anything like this, yoga is an incredible thing for anybody to do. But yeah, I tried all of that. I still use certain breathing exercises when I'm on the plane, just because, like, that one memory of, like, literally almost dying. And maybe I might exaggerate a little bit, but the plane, everybody was screaming. It was like something out of a movie. So, like, it's still to
Yeah,
this
for
day,
real.
like, whenever you get it, I get a little bit of like a little bit of turbulence.
Yeah.
I kind of, like, go back to that memory, and it's like, I'm easy to snap out of it. I can snap out of it right away, and, like, I know how to deal with it. But that's it was quite an experience when, everybody is on the plane screaming, pilots on the thing like, hey, we might have a crash landing, blah blah blah. So, like that's something that sticks
Well,
with you. So yeah, breathing exercises for me is like one thing that I constantly use when I'm on the plane if I need to.
can you tell me that story? Because that sounds like a crazy, insane story. Tell me the plane story.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
happened? Where were
yeah.
you going? Like,
So I was living in Charlotte at the time, and honestly, I can't remember it because I think that the way that the memory is like burned in my brain, I can't remember if I was coming from practice or if it was a tournament or whatever. But I do remember I was flying. I don't know if I was coming home from Europe, but I was flying from LaGuardia to Charlotte. And it's so weird that I was coming from LaGuardia because like, did I have practice there? Like the memory is like so from that before. I can't really remember where I was coming from or what I was doing, but I was going home to
and what
Charlotte
year was this? What
when
team? What team were you on?
I want to say I want to say I was either on Impact, like beginning days of Impact, or right at the end of Damage. When I lived in Charlotte, I'd have to go back and remember specifically, but I think that I was on Impact if I remember correctly. It was early days, but we were flying, and I was sitting next to this girl. I remember a girl my age. I think I might have been like 23, 22 at the time, and we were chatting, and then the plane starts shaking, like normal turbulence, like what we've all dealt with before. It wasn't
Mhm.
until about 10 minutes later where it really got bad and we started hitting air pockets. And the pilot came on and he brought it up like, hey, we're going to experience some major turbulence. There's air pockets ahead. There's no way around it. We're going to have to go through it. Right. It's something along the lines of that. In the first air
Dude, I've
pocket, the
been in it.
first
This is
air pocket
terrible.
we hit,
This is bringing memories back for me on some flights, bro. This
yeah,
sounds.
yeah,
This is like
yeah.
nightmare stuff, dude, for sure.
It is. It's
Ugh.
nightmare fuel. But it was so long ago and it's something that I've dealt with, so like I have no problem with talking about it.
So
He
yeah,
came
first
on
air
talking about
pocket.
the air pockets. Yeah, the first air pocket that we hit, and I'm sure I'm exaggerating this a little bit, but it felt like we dropped in a half a second 10,000 feet.
Yep,
Like in a
yep,
second, it
for
felt like
sure.
we dropped
Oh,
10,000 feet, and everybody like gasped. You can hear like a collective like gasp. And then after that, the pilot comes on and he's like, hey, it's going to continue to get worse. And this is the second time he comes on. And hey, it's going to get worse. And
dude,
it,
this
sure
is
enough, it gets
horrible.
worse. And then me and this girl, just out of nowhere, start holding hands. And I'm not talking like holding hands, but we're like holding on for like dear life. Like you want to be touching somebody in your last moments, kind of a thing. It was one of those. We instantly
For
like
sure.
reached for each other. And just like that human connection, I think that kind of like helped both of us like get through it. But I deal with anyone who knows me. I deal with things like especially serious things, not in the best way. I'm sure maybe some people can relate to this, but I kind of laugh at things that are either, scary, or if I'm not comfortable with a situation, I deal with it with humor. That's one of my one of my flaws. I deal with things with humor. So while everyone is screaming bloody murder on the plane and the oxygen mask comes down, we reach for it. I help myself. I help her get hers on. We go back to holding hands. I start hysterically laughing, and I kind of like lose myself in that moment, because while everyone else is screaming like in horror, I'm hysterically laughing. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized like what was happening, because she brought it up and she was like, hey, like, that was like the scariest thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life. Like, why were you just laughing? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, that's just what happened, how I dealt with it in the moment. It's like, I still to this day don't know why I reacted the way that I did, but I was just hysterically laughing. And then at the end of it, bro, every plane ride was just so scary. I was afraid to fly. I was afraid to get on any plane. The little slightest ting of turbulence, I'm instantly white knuckled on my seat. I'm sweating. I'm sweating bullets. And this happened for like the next 2 years before I was
Yeah.
able to finally like fly comfortably. And the only reason I was able to fly comfortably after that was through medication. Like, cause I could not
Right.
fly. I could not fly normally because, the experience was just so traumatic. Maybe it was like that realization, that fear of actually, dying. We all know that we're going to, right? We all know that we're going to die and
Yeah.
whatever. But I think it was that experience alone where you face it and you're so close to it that you realize in those moments that, hey, like, our life is so precious. And that sounds so cliche, even when I say it and you hear it, it
It's
sounds
true.
so cliche, but life
True.
is truly precious. And when you face something like that and you deal with something like that, you kind of see life for what it is, right? And I think that was one of those moments where it kind of like changed my experience of, okay, when you're dealing with something like that, it's okay. You cannot deal with these things on your own, and it's okay to to ask for help or find help, because you cannot get through this on your own, whether that's through family or whatever. These things are a struggle for a lot of people, traumatic experiences. So, um, it's that, that's the experience for me. That was like kind of the turning point for me. And then, like I said before, it just really like compounded. And it was at that point that I was like really I knew that I needed to find and talk to somebody to deal with this stuff, because I wasn't living normally. Like these things weren't allowing me to just live a normal life anymore. And they were bleeding through into, everything: career, school, relationships, my family members. It didn't matter what it was. Everything was bleeding over. And I knew that at that point, that's when I started to, need some help and ask for some guidance on, hey, what do I do here?
Was there, any specific like come to Jesus moment, or like something where you were like, you know what, this is it. I've had enough. I need to get clear of this, and I can't do it by myself. Like, was there any kind of moment where there was like, all right, this it right here. This is the low point
Yeah.
for me in this, with dealing with this stuff. I need to do that. I need to do something else, because what I'm doing right now is not working.
Yeah, I think it was my very first panic attack. The very first attack I had was like so severe that I was like, okay, like I can't even control what my body is doing anymore. Like at that point where I was like lost control of like who I was, that I was like, man, this is not right. That was the turning point. And it wasn't like, as you said, like it wasn't something that like was a low. It was just that first experience where I was no longer in control of my own body, that or my mind, that I was like, okay, enough's enough. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living like this, because I had anxiety attacks, right? Or I had anxiety, but the difference between anxiety and a full on panic attack is night and day experience, right? A panic attack, like you actually in that moment, you lose yourself. You lose who you are. You don't really know what's going on anymore. Like it's very hard to explain. Um, but I just knew in that moment that I was like, okay, if I can't even control my own mind and my own body, then I need some help. Then I need some outside help. So I think that was like the realization that I knew for sure, that I was like, okay, it's time for a change. And then, ever since then, I worked on all of that, and here we are today. I haven't had anxiety, like even anxiety, like even a little bit of anxiety, and I would say at least 4 years, at
That's
least.
awesome, man.
So, but that took a long time. That took a long time to get through. I mean, took me like 10 years to get to get through that, and to like
Yeah.
work through that. So, it's a long time, and sure, my experience might have taken longer than most, because I also had a lot of other shit to deal with. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's something that anyone can overcome, but I think the biggest thing is, you need to understand what I didn't understand when I was going through it is, don't think that you can just beat it all by yourself. Don't think that you are strong enough just to beat something like this by yourself. It's tough. I went through that, and I wasted so many years on thinking that, oh, I don't need any help. I'm not like a mental patient or anything like that. Because like those are the things that you talk to yourself about. Like, I'm not mental. I don't need any help like this. I don't have any problems. I can deal with this shit. And you try and you try and you try, and it just, like I said, it compounds. So I think that was the turning point for me. And it's I think today it's easy. It's so easy to talk about, and I'm comfortable with talking about it. I think even if you asked me this 2 years ago, I don't think I would have done it. I don't think I would have, talked about something like this until, because it's fragile. It's fragile on the ego. It's fragile on the mind, especially as a male. I think, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate this, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, yourself included. Um, it's tough. It's really tough, and but I think it's something that anyone can overcome, and it's just a little bit of talk, right? And that's all it is. And there shouldn't be a stigma behind it. There really shouldn't. And it's sad that there still is, even in today, 2024.
Yeah, and I mean, and yeah, it's also it's tough. It's humbling to talk about. I mean, I didn't really talk much about, like I had to live through a murder suicide when I was 20, and it's a long story. I think I told it on maybe Marcelo and Tyler's podcast. I can't remember what episode it was. So, and I don't have you all night, and I do want to talk some paintball, but I think this is important for people to know about, like this type of stuff is, again, this is even more probably important than the game, because it could help save somebody's life out there. But, it's kind of one of those things
100%.
where you beat it down. You push, it's like eat the pain. There's that one scene in Platoon where Sergeant Barnes, that one new kid, gets shot and he's dying, and he's screaming in pain, and Sergeant Barnes comes up. It's a different situation in a war, and him screaming in pain as he's dying is giving away their position. And he basically comes up to him, and he's like, take the pain. You need to shut up and take the pain. And you watch things like that when you're a kid, and that's kind of how I treated everything. I mean, I still do in a lot of ways, but but as I'm now sitting here mid 40s, and I look back and I'm like, man, I caused myself so much suffering just eating the pain. Like, I went to work the next day after this incident, and everyone was falling apart around me. And then, like, I went to the funeral, just refused to cry. I was just like, just take it, dude. Like, don't, like, you don't need to be weak in this moment when all these other people are being quote unquote weak. And but now that I can look back 26 years later from that incident, I can kind of go, that was not the way to handle that. That whole let it flow and let it go is probably a better way. I felt like I was being a rock for people, and I was, but it also then was a giant detriment to my mind. Now again, also, but long term, and this is where it's like, you could look at this as, weakness, but it's just mental chemistry. Some people are more predisposed to these things than others. But also, once you make it through it, like, it gives you so much mental strength. It's because you can look objectively at a parking ticket or some bullshit that's happening in your life and be like, this isn't, like, why, this is nothing, like, this isn't a big deal, unless it's a trigger because you haven't dealt with your stuff. And so that's kind of, one of those things, but just kind of keeping it away and not talking about it because it makes you look weak. No, that's bullshit, dude. It doesn't make you look weak. If you have some stuff to deal with, and also it doesn't help you by thinking that way, because it doesn't help you get to that next stage where you're going to be okay and you can be a quote unquote normal person doing the things you need to do in life. And so it's,
I would say it makes it worse.
It does. It does make it worse. And I appreciate your bravery in being willing to talk about this, because like you said, a couple of years ago, when we would go down this road, maybe you wouldn't do it. And honestly, I probably would have been the same way, long ago. Cause I'm like, and dude, I didn't talk about that incident for years, like you had to know me incredibly well and catch me after like 6 beers for me to even mention that, because I didn't want to dredge those memories up.
Yeah.
And now I'm totally okay with that because I've come to peace with that situation, and also learned a lot of really hard lessons about dealing with that type of struggle. But it gave me a lot of power to then have to constantly go, like, I'm maybe this is your way now, and that's kind of to circle this around, is maybe you emerging this stronger mind out of all this stuff that you had to deal with is giving you an easier access to your flow state when you are in a big moment now, because you've been highly effective in some big moments. So that's kind of and then I would like your thoughts on that. But then before I let you go, because we maybe have another 15 minutes or so, I don't know, it depends on how long we can stay, but I kind of want your last thoughts on that. It's like, how do you utilize all these lessons that you're, for me again, I brought a breathing exercise in for anyone, if you are dealing with anxiety out there, or you want to calm your mind and or do a little biohack. It's like, if you just put your hands on your, so you breathe with your diaphragm. Diaphragm's at the bottom of your abdomen.
Mhm.
And if you
Yeah.
people carry a ton of tension. A lot of times when you're tense, your abs are clenched because you put a lot of tension in your abdomen. So if you just let your belly kind of sit as fat as it possibly can be, and just kind of relax those muscles, and then breathe in, but let the diaphragm come up first, and then breathe through your nose, and then your chest comes up. And if you just sit there in as much peace as you can summon wherever you are. I do this before we do shows, because sometimes I'll feel a twinge of anxiety that will come up before. I'm
Yeah.
like, thousands of people are watching this, the whole sport's on my on my shoulder right now. I do not mess this up. You need to do the best job you possibly can. You need to be dialed in right now. Let's go, dude. Like, you give yourselves pep talks. I don't know if anyone else does that, but I do that. And then if I
Of
feel a
course.
twinge of anxiety, because then there's no out. I can't just be like, oh, can I have another minute? It's like, you guys are ready to play. The cameras are on. We spent all this time setting all this up, and it's like, it's go time, dude. And now I got to do this and sit in this chair
Yeah.
for 10 straight hours. So it's like, all right, dude, like, and so it's just, but it's like, you just got to kind of really get focused for that time
Mhm.
period. And I'll just do a little quick couple breaths, and like, just give yourself that moment to center your mind. And then I'm just thinking about, like, all right, well, just trying to visualize, not necessarily perfection, but visualize, like, a giant ball of greatness. It's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
follow this ball of greatness along the way of the day. Like, things are going to
Yeah.
happen. Who knows what could we have? A thunderstorm roll in. We could have a technical, thing that causes us to go out for whatever, whatever. I could almost get hit with paintball if I'm sitting up there. I got to dodge it, whatever. Like, I'm just going to follow this ball of greatness that's clearing out bullshit in front of me throughout the day. And then boom, it's time to go. And by the time that we're, the countdown happens, I'm locked in, and there we go. And we're off to the races. And then
Yeah.
you just focus on the moment, So would you have any hacks
Yeah.
like that? This will kind of be the
Yeah.
last question
To build
on
on
that.
that. Yeah. Specifically, this is great for paintball. This is what helped me. Anxiety and excitement are so close in terms of the way that it makes your body feel. Because anxiety and excitement kind of comes from your stomach, right? When you get that first hints of that feeling, excitement can be like, butterflies or something like that. But anxiety feels very, very similar to the beginning stages. Like, they're very, very close in my mind. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well. What I really did, and that worked for me, before games, instead of like when I started getting that feeling of, "Okay, oh, maybe I'm having anxiety here," I would turn that into pure excitement. And that was one of like my management skills of like, okay, how dealing with that. Instead of anxiety, I would turn that into excitement. And then excitement then turned into, okay, focus, and then go out there and execute. So it was like, maybe it was a start of anxiety, then it was excitement, focus, and then execute. And that was kind of like my mantra for every single time that I went out there for either practice or tournaments, the start of tournaments. Because in tournaments, I still to this day still get butterflies when I play, but it's only the first game of Friday and the first game of Sunday. Anytime after that, I don't have it. I don't have any of it, any of that butterflies or excitement on Saturday, because I'm in that moment, I'm focused. And then on Sunday, I kind of have to reset myself, because the mindset that you need to have from a prelim mindset to a Sunday mindset is very different. And all the people who have been there on Sunday knows that feeling all too well. That the mindset that you need going into those Sunday games need to be much different. So I think that reset of my mind and my body just allows that little like excitement or that butterflies to come back. And then after that, it's just off to the races from there. So I still get that even on Fridays and Sunday games.
Yeah, no, I love the way that's great, man. I mean, that's a great way to kind of, mantras are important, and I totally agree with that. That's kind of, I'm describing like a giant ball of energy, a positive energy, like moving forward and demolishing all obstacles. That to me is like the
Mhm.
physical manifestation of summoning that energy. And then also the big
Mhm.
thing that I will also like tell myself is that, however long you get to do this, and I love doing what I do and I loved playing, but it all ends eventually. You kind of started this
Sure.
off with like, yeah, dude, we're all going to die. It's part of being human. Or whatever, you get old and you can't do it anymore. But it's just kind of like when you feel that twinge of like, oh man, this is like whatever, however you want to call that feeling, because like you said, there is
Right.
a very close link in your mind when cortisol starts pumping in, you get that adrenaline dump. You see this in lots of people and, competitive athletes, especially fighters, because they get that adrenaline dump and then all of a sudden they're burned out of energy. But, it's just allow the magic of the moment and understanding that one day you don't get to do this anymore, fill you with like a
Yeah.
giant burst of positivity and excitement instead of nervousness for what's about to happen, and like harnessing
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and you could even, and like titling it excitement, because like nervousness and excitement are pretty much the same biomechanical thing that's
Yeah.
happening in your brain.
They're the
you know
same exact
it's
thing.
it's the same thing, dude. So you just focus on like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel this way because I'm really excited for this moment. And yeah, there's a lot on the line, but that's okay. Good. Good that there's a lot on the
Yeah.
line
And I'm
because that means
excited to
I'm going to
face
remember
that.
this.
I'm excited to face that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man, like I said, man, just mad respect to you for fighting your demons and making it out positive on the other side. And here you guys are again, kind of whooping that ass, just having a really good run for the past 3 events. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your bracket. So it's you, Hurricanes, Revo, Ironman, and New York Extreme, and event going down September 13th through the 15th in the Windy City as we head back to Chicago for like the 35th year in a row. I love Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities. My family might come out and spend a little time. Love Chicago. A lot of friends there. Always had an amazing time there. I have crazy stories about Chicago. But it's one of the hardest events to win. And now you guys have a target on your back. And admittedly, you guys don't have a ton of depth, but which I do want to get your thoughts on before we kind of, if you guys are
Yeah.
like how the younger players are looking, how you guys are kind of looking
Mhm.
at that. It seems to not be a problem for you guys. I mean, obviously the 5-minute breaks in the finals kind of help things out, but let me get your thoughts on the bracket. Hurricanes, Revo, Ironman, and New York Extreme. Obviously, and anyone that's been watching this year is going to be like, yeah, Legion makes it out of that. So I'm just wondering, how hard do you think that bracket is? Your thoughts on the other teams, and then who's the other team that comes out other than you guys? And do you think somebody catches a wild card from that bracket?
Okay. Okay. So first off, I do want to say that a lot of teams this year have been so inconsistent. Even the top 4 teams from last year, if you look at you guys, I think NXL or Go Sports, somebody posted it of each event in the standings, and you look at that, and even Dynasty they took like a 14th, and then you have Hurricanes who took a second, and then a 13th, and a 15th or something like that. And then Ironman makes a Sunday, and then they take last place. They take 20th.
Bro,
So it's
third
like,
to 20th. Third to
yeah,
20th.
third to 20th. So
That's
so
crazy.
and those are
Yeah.
just three. Those are just three examples. So and impact's the same. So there's so many teams that are so inconsistent this year. So when I see that bracket, I go, man, any one of these teams can beat us. Because what Ironman are we going to get? What New York Extreme are we going to get? What Hurricanes are we going to get? Are we going to get the second place Hurricanes that look like they were going to
Yeah.
they were going to
For
terrorize
sure.
the
Yeah.
whole league all year? Or are we going to get to the
Yeah,
14th place Hurricanes? Are we going to get Ironmen who took third, or are we going to get last place Ironmen? So like that bracket is so tricky to call because the inconsistencies of all the teams this year. It's not just like a few teams. It's half the league. And I think that that's because so many teams have gotten better that anyone can beat you on any day. So it's very important that you're always playing at your best. Like you almost have to be playing perfect all the time. Like Sunday, everyone talks about perfect paintball. You have to play perfect paintball on Sunday if you want to win. You got to beat the best teams. Doesn't matter who you draw, when you draw them, whether you see them in the finals or whether you see them in the first match in a wild card game. You have to be playing perfect on Sunday if you want to win the event. But now it almost seems like that story has changed, and you need to be playing perfect every single game and almost every single point to beat any one of these teams, or there's a chance that you could lose. All of these teams are good enough to beat you on any given day. So to answer your question, obviously I think that we're getting out of that bracket, but I think it's a toss-up between Hurricanes and Revo. But I also think that every team in there could beat each other, that there is a possibility of a wild card coming out of there. So to answer your question, I would say it's of those three teams, I would say it's us, Revo, and Hurricanes. Those two teams are going to guaranteed, but one of those teams could also make it out as a wild card because of the way that our bracket is. There could be either high point margins or it can be close. So it all is going to come down to point spread, but there's a very high possibility compared to the other brackets.
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry I misspoke earlier. You guys are sitting at a +50, not a +40. But you guys have beaten up kind of people in the prelims and beaten some people up on Sundays too. Like +50 is just ridiculous, dude. Like that's insane. I have my notes to go back and look at. Yeah, dude, that's
you
insane.
have the stats of the second place team? Do you have the stats of second place
Heat.
team and what their margin would be?
Well,
what's Heat's margin for the year?
Well, you guys were +19, +29, 2. Yeah. So and then Heat was +9 at the last one, +12, and dude, not even close. +4, +9, +12. Not even close. Not even close, dude.
Yeah.
And then the only other, so Dynasty after the first event was sitting at a +14. Dynasty's had some really big wins. And these are all again, I crunch these numbers kind of quick. So these are all unofficial.
Yeah, sure.
But they, Dynasty was sitting at a +15. No, I don't even think it's even close, man. Like, because it's, let me sure I got the right one. Yeah, Lone Star +19. Yeah, it's not even close because Heat's been incredibly. They're talk about a consistency. I mean, 3 5th places in a row. They're due. They get Connor back at the next one. Connor Kelly on paternity leave. Congratulations to the Kelly family. Good to see good people having kids. That's how we make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. But so Heat's due. But you're right, man. It's just been all over the place. X Factor's been very consistent with an 8th, a 2nd, and a 6th. Dynasty, but to speak to your point, Dynasty 1st, 14th, 4th, Shock 15th, 4th, 2nd, Impact 6th, 15th, 3rd, Hurricanes 2nd, 13th, 12th, missing 2 Sundays in a row. Damage 13th,
but even
6th, 7th,
even X Factor, you said 2nd, 6th, 8th, right? There's no one that's like consistently getting top 4s.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Compared to years past, look at years past.
Yep. No, you guys are odd. Look, so it's 573 to 450. I mean, you guys are leading by 123 points in their overall standings. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Even with double points at World Cup, that's a big lead for you guys. Don't fumble that bag because that's good for your sponsors. If series title is one of those things where it's like, okay, hey, people are fighting for event wins, World Cup wins. Like those are the important things. Series titles, they're important, but they're more important because you have sponsors that pay for you guys to play, and it's good to have the series titles out there because then they could hang their their promotion flag on series titles, and it's cool too. It's one of those things you look back on, and it is kind of cool to say that we had the series title for that year. But as far as, who has the like, you guys are the people that Dynasty, that's the team you got to get through. Heat's another team you got to get through because, they've been just constantly making the semifinals. Like they're always be, always making the quarters. And then, but it's kind of one of those situations now. So let's talk about the depth. Like, what are you guys doing about depth? Because, and how, like, who's the first name on the tip of your tongue? If you're the coach, you go to the bench, one dude's got to get out there. You need a rest. I mean, obviously it's positional, but who do you think's like the next guy up off the bench? Who's 6 right now? Who's number 6?
Our sixth man would probably be Jake McDarby.
Okay.
Right now there's nobody that's close to that level of giving a break. We're better off of like switching one guy out. Like if you looked at the last event, we gave Malloy a break and Jake came in. But anytime we tried, the second line, we really struggled. And it's nothing against them. The team is investing in them as players, as future players for Red Legion. But it's tough when every point matters right now. It's hard for them to get that experience and going out there and playing in like crucial games to get that experience, because as that experience is what really allows you to elevate as a player. Yes, you can really grind out your mechanics, your game sense. You can watch film and things like that, but without being able to implement that in specific scenarios, it's very hard to recreate that in practice. So it's tough to allow them, let's say come Sunday, even when we're up 3-0 or 4-1, these games can quickly turn around. So I don't think the coach right now has complete faith in them as a squad, as a unit. Individually he does, and you'll see like towards the second event of the doubleheader, he was changing out 1 or 2 bodies when we needed breaks, which was pretty rare in any case. But right now, the sixth man I would say is definitely Jake McDarby. He's consistently getting better and better and better. Every time I go down to Florida and train with them, he's just a notch better than he was the last time I saw him, which is very impressive because it's hard to continually get that much better over a course of just a couple of years. So to see his pace, and he's outpacing everybody else in terms of mechanical and just raw skill and talent, but he's just lacking that experience that one needs to continue to be a great player. But it's coming. I think for him it is coming, and I think that he could be a future great player.
Well, he's only 20, so like he's a young dude.
He's only 20.
He can't even legally get a drink yet. I mean, it's like I first got on Ironman I was 20. You were a phenom, so but I played on Navron when I was 16. That was a different era of the game, but like, I look back at that whatever. It's the point is that the kid is definitely on the right trajectory, but he seems to be, he's your snake attacker dude off the bench. Who gives Karslev a rest?
Yeah.
Because Karslev seems to be a beast. That dude just goes and goes and goes and goes over there. But that dude is running for D3 half the time. I mean, like, it's awesome that he doesn't get winded. Props to him.
We have nobody to give him a rest.
Yeah, so that would be my next question.
There's nobody to give him a rest.
Yeah. Who is 7 then?
Yeah.
Who's 7? You gun to your head right now, you got to pick a 7th. Who's 7? Based on what you've seen in practice and tournaments, even though those guys are playing like 6 points of that.
A kid named Jameson on our team. For some reason, I'm literally forgetting his last name because I don't think they've made jerseys for him yet, so I wasn't comfortable with it. But we called him Jameson or JMO.
Stanton. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Stanton?
Yeah, I think. I actually feel horrible for not knowing his name, but I would say, gun to my head, that's 7. But as you saw, like even on Sunday at the last event when we were playing, I believe it was Aftershock, we could barely make it alive on the break. You notice our coach didn't try anybody else, right? Because there's just no, right at this moment, there's no one else to try. And, and again, this is not a dig at these players. This is not a dig at, at them individually. And they're just not there yet. They're just not ready. But when they are ready, the coach will see the coach will see that. I mean, he'll know when these guys are ready. The team will know when they're ready. They will know when they're ready, and they'll get their shot. Because I tell them all the time, like, hey, I know I've been there. We've all been there. It is very hard to come off the bench cold. You've warmed up, you're ready to fight, and then you don't play, 4 points or 5 points. And then the coach is like, hey, get out there. It's hard to come off the bench cold, but you have to be ready in those moments, because when your name is called, you have to go out there and you have to show the coach that I can come off the bench cold. That means that I can also play when I'm hot, right? If you can show the coach that you can come off the bench after 5 points of not playing, warming up, going out there, kind of losing your sweat, helping in the pit, and then going out there cold and absolutely dominating in front of the coach, there's no better feeling to that coach than going, okay, he's getting there. He's ready. Because if you can come out, like I said, if you can come off cold, then you can do it hot. You can come out and you can be a starter. So it's just, and I always say this to them, I say this to anybody who asks or anybody who will listen. When you get your shot and your name is called and you walk out on that field, you have to step up and you got to show up. And if you don't, then they're looking to the next guy. That's always how it is. This is in any professional sport. When your name is called, if you either step up in that moment or they move on to the next guy. That's just the way it is. There's not many second chances in professional sports. In any sport, it does not matter, right? So you just have to be ready. You got to train, and anyone out there is listening, you have to train. You got to be ready. And whether you're a D2 player that's also riding the bench, when your name is called, the coach sees these things. Everybody sees these things. And when you come off and you can score a big point off the bench, I mean, not only it's huge motivation for yourself, but it's a huge motivation for the team. Now everybody's starting to believe in you. The coach is starting to believe in you. You're starting to believe in yourself. I mean, I went through this on this team, on Russian Legion. When I first got on Red Legion, I didn't start. I was on the semi-pro team. I didn't even make the pro roster. In 2008, the first year where I was on the team, I didn't even make the pro roster. I was on the semi-pro team, and that team was called Dark Legion. I played 2 events. I think it was 2 events that I played with them. Continued to work, continued to grind. Went over to Russia. I put in the work. I finally got my shot. They pulled me up. I didn't start right away. They put me out on the field. The second I went out on the field, I absolutely dominated, because I knew that if I don't step up, if I don't show up here, then I'm going back to the semi-pro team. And I'm going to have to stay there until they give me another shot, right? Which is unlikely. So like, these are the experiences that I've had to go through, and it was more cut through then, because we had a semi-pro team. We don't even have a semi-pro team. So there's not a place that you go to after. It's like, if you're not stepping up, they're going to find another player and you're just gone. You're off of that team, right? So, and you either have to find another team somewhere, you have to find a semi-pro team and then try to continue to work your way up. It's not as easy as it once was, where people had sister teams, right? You grew up and you know about the sister teams too. Like when I was coming up, the sister teams was a huge thing, but now we don't really have that. So, you got to step up, and you're in control of your own destiny. And if you're not training and you're not doing all of these things prior to stepping out onto the field, onto the game field, then you're just not going to be ready. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your team a disservice, and you're doing your coach a disservice by not being there, not showing up to practice, not drilling, doing, like you said in the beginning of the show, the mundane things, right? Because those are the things that are going to propel you to a higher level than, you know, the players on your team and the players in your league, whether you're D3, D5, professional, it doesn't matter. That mindset rings true for all levels.
No, it's a bunch of great points. I think it's I don't think people that just got into the game for the past, I mean, even if you've been around for almost a decade now, understand, because this is part of the history that got a little bit lost in the wash with you getting picked up again by Legion, and this run. But you have history with this team. I mean, so you were, we brought you on excessive when you were, I think, 16 or 17, and then you played with some different squads. So this is like 2005-ish we're talking about, but then we go 2008, but you decided to go over and live in Moscow and train and like make an actual move to live in another country to try to be a pro paintball player. And then, like you just described, it wasn't, the most glamorous thing in the world as far as who you had to start with, because, you're playing on the semi-pro team. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about that, and different people that have had different adventures in that. But I just always remember there was like, and I just kind of I want you to tell people the story of what it was like real quick, living over there and having to kind of grind in, we used to call it the dungeon. It wasn't a dungeon. You guys had a training facility, but, but it was tough. I mean, you're over there.
It was more a barracks.
And this is, it was like a barracks, but you also, this is like pre-Netflix. This is like and I always remember you telling me the story, and I'm listening to the story. I'm like, man, this is a great origin story, because you had 2 DVDs. I remember Fern Goalie was one of them. And what was the other one?
Yeah. American Psycho.
Yeah, that was it. And I was like, nothing describes J-Rab's persona better than the fact that he goes over and is just stuck over there with nothing to do other than just play paintball every day. And you said there was like, you would wake up, you guys would train, and then you'd go and get food from like this old babushka, like, or I'm messing up how you say grandma in like in Russia, but so you get your meal from this little thing down the way, and then you come back and you're like, bro, like I didn't have, or entertain. It's not like I had any cool stuff to watch. The only DVDs that I had to watch were Fern Goalie and American Psycho. I'm like, J-Rab, this perfectly describes you, because Fern Goalie is like a really awesome, sensitive movie, and then American Psycho is like one of the gnarliest movies ever made. And I'm like, that totally encapsulates like your paintball persona, because you are a really nice guy and you're super chill, but also you can like be a crazy killer out there on the field. So I'm like, this is, I mean, if I was writing a piece of fiction, I couldn't write that better. So tell me about that experience.
Yeah. This was during a time like, if you've done any traveling recently, you can go anywhere and there's internet everywhere, whether it's a cafe, at the hotel, even in Europe. Like, they're much better about their Europe than they're with their internet than they were like 10, 12 years ago. But this was, Russia 2008, like there wasn't the internet.
There's
like
no
even
Wi-Fi,
where
bro.
I was
No Wi-Fi.
around, there was no
No such
cafe, internet bars like in the area. There was none of that. So I did not know that when I went over there. I just assumed, it's like anybody else, anywhere else, they're gonna have internet. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't even close to that. So yeah, the first time, this was actually the second time that I went over. My second, like, I called it a tour. So my second tour over there.
Or a tour, like a tour of duty. Yeah, it's a tour of duty, bro.
It's like a tour of duty. Yeah. So
Gotta
it's
do
like,
your time.
so my second tour over there, I had a big, this was at the time where you had the portable DVD players, and I had the big like case where you can put your DVDs. Like, I had 100 DVDs inside this thing. There was no hard drives yet. You didn't download it to any of these things. You had it literally on discs. And I had a big thing and I forgot it at home. So it was just the 2 that I had, because you could stick like 2 or 3 inside there. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'll choose one. And those were the only 2 that I had. I had no internet, so there was literally nothing else to do. And we had food.
Sounds miserable.
We had food at the thing.
So
like, it was a barracks. it was a barracks. So I would literally wake up, I would go to my locker, put my gear on, go out there and train because not all of us like train together at the same time. We would have like, intervals where sometimes I would train with Mishka and Kostya. I mean, this was not the first year, but later. The first year was like, let's say Mishka and Dima or things like that. So you would have different times, and you would do different drills against different people. So you'd wake up, go to my locker, get dressed, go out there, and then figure out what the day was. Then you would undress. I would shower. They had like a little food thing there, and I got like an allowance to eat there. So I'd get my allowance. I'd eat at the thing. I'd spend like an hour just like resting, and then I'd go out there and I would go back to my locker, and then you would train again. So we would do like 2 a days. It wasn't like super hard. It was like a couple hours of drills. You'd rest, or in the morning you would do workouts. Lifting weights. Training your body, whatever. Then you'd have a little bit of rest. You'd go out there and you'd do it again, whether it's drills or physical exercise. And then after that, there wasn't, much to do because like people are like, oh, well, we have to go do this tomorrow. So, you're playing 5 days a week. There's not much time for exploring. So only on the weekends could I do those things, but I didn't have a car. It wasn't like I could just, I'm also a young kid. I just graduated high school. So I don't really know how to get around anywhere yet. Like, it's not like I am today. I could go to any city and I can go anywhere and do anything. I know how to get on a subway or a train or whatever it is. I'm very self-sufficient now because I've done it a million times. But then like, I knew nothing. I didn't know, the system. I didn't know. And also all I heard from them was horror stories. The cops are corrupt and this and that. And they can just take your money for no reason. And I'm like, I don't want to go outside. Like, I don't want to go do these things. And
I don't leave the
so a
barracks.
lot of the time, yeah, I didn't want to leave the barracks only just out of pure fear. Right. And again, like I'm fresh out of high school. So I'm 18. And I'm not worldly. I don't know how to do any of these things yet. So I spent literally all of my time in the barracks watching the same movies. And because I went over there in stints, right? I had tours. So I'd go over there 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So once I was over there, whatever I had is what I had. So the one time I went over there, like you said, it's just the 2 DVDs. And man, what a miserable experience that is. It was so bad. The only thing that kept me going was being able to play every single day.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, again, this is when like the analogy or the metaphor, however you want to look at it, but what a crucible, man. If you want to make,
Yeah.
if you want to take iron, soft iron, and make it into steel, something that's, you could literally smash against another sword and it's not going to break.
Yeah.
And depending on the strength of the steel, the weaker steel will give, that will be the one that breaks it or loses its edge. But Jesus, dude, like, what a way to create some steel. You have to take that iron and you got to mash it while it's hot. And then you got to heat it up to a certain temperature. And then you have to quench it, thus, drastically decreasing its temperature at the same time. That's how you make steel. And so the fact that you were down to do that and go through, a tour of duty where you had to just, have very, very little, also no Instagram, you're not on your phone, you're not getting sucked into dopamine addiction, but you were able to, at a young age, at a very crucial age too, because again, it's not like, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, you were getting reps in against us when we were, 20, 19 years old, when you were 9, back in the woods, and then, had, your tour on, like you did all these things and it prepped you to kind of go and get in, to take that, solid, good, some hardenable steel and then put it into a crucible and come out very sharp and very hard on the other side of that ordeal.
Yeah.
That's a
Just
good word
quick,
for it.
just
An
quickly.
ordeal.
Yeah. Just quickly, I will say playing on excessive really prepared me mentally to play on Red Legion, because the reason why I left excessive, because I was not having fun. I was the rookie, but I was
None of
also
us were having
kind
fun,
of,
bro. None of us were having fun.
But as
None of us were
yeah,
having
you guys
fun.
weren't. I mean, from your perspective, yeah, you saw the team differently than I saw the team. But when I was on the team, I was more of like a, I don't want to say like a slave, but it was like I remember they would call the phone in my room. They would call the phone in my room and they'd be like, "Hey, come turn my lights out." Or, "Hey, come, I need this or I need that." And it's like, you had to do that. Like that was being a rookie. Like these kids like even on our team, they don't know what we had to go through as rookies. Like there was
They
literally
don't
like
know.
an initiation. Like that's what it was. Like you were treated
Uh,
like absolute crap,
yeah.
but that was the way it was. Nowadays, like you could get sued over the things that they made me do. Like it, like like that's just the way.
I
Like
would like
that's
to
the way
say
it
for the
was.
record, I never, unless I don't remember this, but I don't think I ever was the old dude on the team because I mean I think I was like 26 or 7 at the time, but I don't think I
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, "Hey, J-Rab, come carry my bag." That I just because that happened to
No,
me, where it was like, like people,
yeah,
it's like, "Hey, carry our bag." You got, and that's again, like you said, that's just like pro sports. But I mean, I had to
yeah,
do that stuff, and that was a thing. But I always felt like I don't know. I wanted to be I don't, it's just the way I was raised, but I kind of wanted to be the cool older brother guy, like, I can't believe they made you
yeah.
do that, bro.
But
Like, we need you
that's
to
what
go out
you
here and
were.
feast today.
But yeah, that's what you were. You did do that. You were that kind of figure for me, but it was like always the majority of the players, they see you differently. And that's just how it was. But at the time, like I didn't understand that. I like, why am I being treated this way? I'm not having fun. This is not what I thought it would be. I'm thinking differently. Like, did I make the right choice? I literally left my friends on DC Dev to come and do this, and I'm miserable doing it. Like this, so I went back and after I left, or the team, because I left before the team folded. Um, and after I left, I went back and played with my friends in D2, and I had like the most fun that I ever had, like playing paintball again. I'm back with my friends. My dad's there; he's helping coach and whatever. And then after that, it was kind of like a mindset, like a restart. And I was like, okay, and my dad, he was the one that pushed me because I was like, I don't want to go and play for another pro team again. I don't want to do that. I don't want to experience what I experienced on that team. Like, it was just, I don't want to do that. And he was the one I was like, no, 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 no. Just go out for the tryout. You might like it, whatever. And then it was a night and day difference. They treat you instantly like a professional, right? Because that's what it is. They treat you. You are an investment to them, and your investment is giving back into the team, right? And producing. So they want to make sure that you have everything that you need, no matter what. It's like I got sick right after this event, and our coach Max, he's our American coach. Oh, well, he's Russian, but he's our American. He coaches the American guys. Um, he was asking me every day, like, "Hey, are you feeling better? Do we need to get in? Do you need, this? Do you need that? Like, do you need money? You need to go and see a doctor or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, I just need rest. I just need rest. I'm
Yeah.
good." Like, but he's on top of it, because there you're a player on that team and you are an investment. So they want to make sure you're healthy. They want to make sure you're doing all of these things. Like he's blowing up my phone constantly, not in a bad way, of course, but he's blowing up my phone constantly to just make sure that I'm on top of my stuff. I'm doing everything that I need to do. I have all of the things that I need. If I need anything, don't be afraid to ask. That's just the way it was. And that's how it is on Impact too. Like, they treat you as a professional. Not all of these teams treat you, that way. So it's a very different atmosphere from what I went from excessive, right, to Russians. It was more of like I felt respected rather than just shit on, by everybody else because I'm a rookie, because I'm a young kid. It was more of like a respect thing. It could have had to do a lot with when I went over there. We played a one-on-one tournament, and I won the one-on-one tournament the first day I went there, and there was like 15 people there, and I beat everybody: Malloy, Mishka, Sergey, everybody. And maybe that was the respect thing that I needed. So I don't know, but it was like it was a different change of pace. It was night and day difference in the way that everyone, coaches, the chief, just the way that they talk to you is, and that same respect, that same atmosphere, and that same professionalism. Almost 20 years later, right? I mean, we're 4 years shy off of 2 decades. Almost 20 years later, it's the same atmosphere, that same professional mindset. Um, and it was very, very refreshing, coming back to the team.
I got a couple more questions before I let you go. One of them is that I just thought of right now, and then I got a couple more kind of about Legion, its mindset, playing aggressive, and then you personally and how you've been playing the game this season. Because I've been watching your whole career, bro. We're having these conversations about, oh, I watched you,
Yeah.
when you were 9 and playing, and then when you came on the team, like
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen your whole. It's been cool to watch. Yeah, it's awesome, dude. It's a special thing, but what you've done. But that kind of we were just talking about, and I mean, mostly joking, but actually, no, sorry, mostly not joking about how, like, yeah, dude, I wasn't having fun either. Because I mean, I never really looked at competitive paintball as fun. Like it wasn't a fun thing for
Mhm.
me. It was more of like, I'm gonna go give myself to this and bring what I have to this purely out of how good can we get out of this? How good, how well can our team do? How good can I get? It was more of like an achievement thing. Like I don't sit down to write pieces and stuff that we do for public consumption. That is not fun for me. It's chip and granite sometimes. It's difficult, like
Yeah.
and so but paintball is supposed to be this fun thing, and but there is a change. There's like a change, and maybe some pros go out there and that's how everyone looks at things differently. But to get the best out of me and the best out of the moment, again, to summon that magic of the moment, I had to kind of look at it really seriously for me to draw out the person I needed to be in those instances. And so it was never fun. It was hard, and it was rewarding, and it was sad when we lost and devastating in ways because you put so much into it. But it was like, for me, when I was younger, and because started playing pro at 16, but it was always just like an adventure, like I don't, where it's
Mhm.
going to be stormy and there's going to be people to fight and you got to win. And it was just always that's how I looked at at the paintball adventure, at the whatever you call this thing that we do. So I kind of wanted to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, because when you go to an NXL event or Major League Paintball event, yeah, there's hundreds of teams there, and I always say this, and I really do mean it. Like, this is a really important message, is like, hey, dude, if you just want to show up and like crush beers the night before and just like have a blast with your boys, like there's a place for you, in tournament paintball. But if you want to take
Yeah.
this as
Yeah.
seriously as anything you've ever taken in your life, and you want to be one of the best, we got a place for you too. And every iteration in between. So it's like, but what would you say to that though? Because there is, at a certain point, you do have to, because like you said, I mean, that's a cool adventure when you're 18, but I don't know how much fun's in that. You like you said, you're not going into the city, you're not seeing sights. I mean, you're kind of just at the barracks, kind of living that lifestyle and that lifestyle is pretty brutal. You're training 5 days a week. You're not eating gourmet
Yeah.
meals. You don't have a lot of access to entertainment. There's not a lot of outlets. It's just, you're laser focused on achieving this goal. And yeah, is that fun? No, not really. But like, not everything in life has to be fun. This whole, like, somebody goes to work, hey, have fun, or like, this to have fun. It's like, say that sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's kind of bullshit in a way. Like, sometimes you just have to dig deep and get the work done, dude. Like, and it's not easy.
Right.
You got to just, get that run in, or get that, to finish that piece that you're trying to work on, whatever it may be. Go do your training, shoot the pie plates. It's like, I remember talking to Greg
Yeah.
Sewers, and he was like, he was like, he was retiring at the height of his powers. I'm like, why are you doing this? He's like, dude, I don't want to, I've lost the motivation. I want to build my business. I want to raise my kid. Like, I've lost the motivation to show up and shoot pie plates on a Wednesday afternoon. I don't want to suck. I don't want to not be elite. And I was like, you'll be back. So we'll see if Greg ever comes back. But I just want you to speak on that before we move into these last couple questions, because, you're a perfect example of that. Having to fight through anxiety,
Yeah.
having to go to all these different teams, having to be, you got to be, put the hat on, like, okay, I'm one of these elite players, man. I have to play the game in the off season, all this sort of stuff. You know, it's like that's a trial.
Yeah. I think that what for me in terms of, being a professional athlete, the fun part for me, or the least fun part for me, is actually going to the gym, going to run, going to, lift weights. I don't enjoy that. It's so boring to me, so monotonous, but you have to do it because you have to be able to, especially on this team now, like I have to be able to play every single point because I know right now there's none of that competition that's right behind me that's like chomping at the bits trying to take my spot, but I still know that I need to continue to do these things because uh, if I'm not playing at a high level, or if I'm not playing perfect, then we're gonna lose, right? And that speaks for everybody in our squad, Malloy, Karslev, whoever it is. If they're not playing at that high level, or if they cannot play every single point, we're gonna lose, right? So all five of us understand the position that we're in because the kids aren't ready yet. That I have to do that no matter how much I hate it. And I will tell you, I hate it. I hate going to the gym. I hate running. I hate being on the jump rope. I just don't enjoy doing it, but I do enough. I do what it takes to be able to play every single point. But what is absolutely the most fun for me, which a lot of people don't like, I love going to do drills. So one of the things that I don't do them when I'm on my own. Okay? So but I love doing them in a team atmosphere. So here, let me break it down. For me, so I've been talking to, other guys like, "Oh, hey, how's the team? How much are you practicing? How much are you training?" So I go down to Florida. We have a team house. I have a bedroom there. Um, I go down to the team house about 4 5 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks before each event. It's varied
So
for
tour
3
duty,
events so far.
different tour duty. This time you
Yes,
have Netflix though,
but I'm
you know?
going down to Florida, and we still play 5 days a week. Sometimes, like this last time, Max didn't feel like I was in like a good enough shape. So I was doing 7. And some of the days I was doing 2 days, where everyone else like, "Oh, you can go home now." I had to come back later at 6 p.m. and continue and do more. Right. So when I'm there and I'm training, to me, like that's some of the most fun. I'm having the most fun in those moments. I love training and watching my snapshot just get better and better and better. Watching my shot get on the break get better and better, better. Like if I'm doing 10 in a row and I'm just smashing this pole over and over and over again, that feeling for me is so incredible. It's so amazing. But it's opposite for a lot of people. They don't like shooting these targets. Um, Whereas like some people like working out, like, someone like you said, Greg Sewers, he loves working out. Maybe he didn't like shooting targets. I'm the exact opposite, right? I love shooting these targets, but they're like, "Oh, aren't you getting burnt out like playing this much?" No, I look forward to it. Like I'm already looking at the dates when I'm going to fly down there, and happy that I'm going to be training again, and then I'm down there playing 5 days a week. I'm excited to do that. Like, and I never thought that I would say that I'd be excited to play 5 days a week again like I used to. But man, I absolutely love it. I'm just excited, and I don't know if it's like this found like love that I have for the game, but I'm happy to go down there. I'm happy to play. Like I'm happy to be in the house, even though we're not doing much. It's not like we're going to the beach all the time. We're not doing a lot of crazy different things, at the house. But I'm just happy that I'm training and that I'm playing and I'm continuing to do the things that I love.
Can I ask you this question? Because I mean, you obviously have a very hyperactive mind that likes to, you know, most people that have to deal with anxiety are intelligent people that have hyperactive minds, and that's what sets you into those moments. Do you think
Yeah.
that the reason why you like that regimen, where it's like, okay, I know that for like I'm hitting pause on everything else and I get to get in this grind. And obviously you're a human that is you don't get to the position you're in, and you don't get to become, I mean, this just goes for everybody. Like you're not going to become a badass paintball player, or basically any good at anything in life, elite at anything, where people, where you're not getting, it's like, you're not really getting paid for your time. You're getting paid for the value you bring to the time. Like that's what you're getting paid for. And so it's like, and so do you think that has to do with the fact that because of your hyperactive mind, that you get to go to a place where it's like, all right, man, like, yeah, you have your distractions in your regular life and whatever it may be, other stuff going on. But for that period of your life, you are locked into like, this is the this is the software I'm running, like this is like the overarching software I'm running for this specific period. And it's just, and this is kind of one of those things that why people love, a routine can be really good for people. It's like it can, some people it tears them down, but if it's the right routine for the right reason,
I call it structure.
Yeah, structure. Perfect. There you go. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put whatever term on it you want, but like, do you think that that's part of it?
Absolutely. Like I strive in structure. Like last year I dealt with a lot of different stuff on ACD. So, it was a frustrating year for me. Obviously, I had to deal with an injury as well. But we didn't have great structure. I didn't have great structure personally, and I felt like that brought on a lot of maybe negativity for the team, for myself, whatever, which led to frustration. But this year, I thrive in structure or routine, as you would put it. And I think that going down there, I think why I get so excited, because I know that I'm going into that routine or that structure, and I know what I can look forward to. I'm very much a planner. When I did get a lot of anxiety, I got my anxiety by not knowing what is coming next, right? And that's my mind would just race and wander, like, oh, what about this? Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? And then I would just drive myself crazy. So like I said, I thrive in structure because I know, hey, this is a detailed, and I can literally look at the next, 6 weeks. As soon as I get there, this is exactly what my 6 weeks are going to look like. Here's what I expect myself to be in 2 weeks. Here's where I expect myself to be in 3 weeks. So I know, and I can plan, and I can literally sit here and just in these 5 minutes, I know exactly the mindset that I need to take, where I'm going to be in physical shape, my mind, everything in those weeks. I can plan that out, and I know that nothing is going to interfere with that. Nothing is going to come in between that, because I won't allow it, right? Because once I have that set, once I have it planned out, there's nothing that's going to pull me out of that. And that's kind of like how I've always been. Once I literally set my mind to something, that's it. Like there's nothing else in the world in that moment. And shouldn't, some might see that as a flaw, but it's the reason why I've been able to be so good at this. And honestly, I'm everything that I put my mind to it, I'm pretty good at. Right, I'm above average in, because I just, once I have my mindset on it, that's all there is in the world, and I don't see anything else. I don't lose sight, I don't lose vision, and I only focus on that, and that's all there is.
Last question. I think that this makes a lot of sense now, talking to you for a while, of how good you guys have gotten so fast. Well, I mean, everyone knew that, we've been talking about this for the past years when, because Legion picked up Smotroff, and Smotroff was a phenom, and he really helped their starting five. And but it's been 5 years since the team has been, at the top, constantly threatening for wins with a few flirts here or there. But now picking you up, but it's like, when looking at kind of how things are going, is that you guys the way you're playing the game, like you guys, and so this is it's a two-pronged question, and I just want your thoughts on this, because this is just, other people out there watching the way that the top pros play, and there's been different incarnations of the overarching strategy and tactics that seem to be prevailing at the time for a while, whatever, aggression versus defense. And you guys are a very hyper aggressive team. Having done this TV show, and watched every single, I've watched that last game more times than I want to count. I mean, my notes on that last game that I gave to the producers for us to help create the show was probably 4,000 words long, just for that last game, just one game, and so,
Jesus.
yeah, it's like every single move, why the move was made, why the strategy, who was playing, like literally like
Right.
everywhere, every spot, it's like the entire thing, just so they had all the information they possibly could have, going to create these, because creating a 22-minute long show and a 44-minute long show and whatever, it was a lot of work. But it was interesting because watching all this, how you got the strategy and when you would send guys and when you would not, and then watching guys play in their spots in certain positions. So the two-pronged question is that why are you guys playing as aggressive as you're playing? And then why are you personally, and Malloy's also kind of in a similar boat. You're kind of, it's like once you master something, you're allowed to break the rules. Archie does that, whatever. All the best players do this, but you stay up and out, you stay out of your spot longer than if you were teaching a clinic. You would
Yeah.
tell, and because we'll say it on the webcast, we'll be like, bro, what are you doing? You're not J-Rab. Get your ass in that bunker, dude. Why are you you just got shot again
Yeah.
early. Why are you spending, that extra 20 seconds over the top of your spot, dude? What are you doing? Hide. But so it's just kind of fascinating because it is kind of changing the meta. It's kind of changing the grand strategy that people are trying to achieve because, if they want to beat you guys, you cannot play a slow brand of paintball. I mean, Aftershock ended up going down early in that match because they went up a body but decided to play defense and got stuck in their spots.
Yeah.
I had Corey Hall on our last show and he talked about this. He was blatantly, he's very frank about it. Corey shot it straight. He's like, yeah, dude. I mean, we didn't take advantage of the high body situation. We let him get into those crucial spots. We played timid and they didn't. And that cost us. We got to change that moving forward.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the situation right now, is that you guys are running a rather hyper offensive mindset. And then personally, when you guys are in gunfights, you also are still pretty hyper aggressive as well too. And you particularly, because you're playing the two typically behind Malloy, and you are riding on
Yeah.
that aggressive edge, and it's impressive because you won an MVP doing it. Malloy wins the MVP at this, in your second win, and but you were right at neck and neck with him as well too. Everyone has to play well on a starting five when it's basically just the five you're running. So shout out to Kirill, Kirill's crossfield shot on LJ was massive in that final game. I mean, he was doing so good doing that. I mean, you guys are mixing a lot of stuff up, but the two ascent as again, the final thoughts here are, why does Legion play the game the way they're playing it when the past couple of years it's the mixture of offense and defense that's been the successful, equation. You go like Damages won tournaments this way, Dynasties won tournaments this way. You go up a couple points and then you lock it up. You don't hide, obviously, and you're not, just taking back bunkers or staying in the pocket. You take those offensive spots. You guys do not play that way. And then you personally and Malloy, like, you guys are just the wild, wild west out there, bro. Straight up like old school gunfighters, like, put me in. I'm gonna stay out of this spot. And you're just like up over the top. Hey, put me in, bro. You're not even coming close, and in my experience, I think this has a lot to do with time behind the gun, because the more time behind the gun you get in those drills, you guys are whatever those 5 days a week you guys are doing, or however many people are doing them, it's that you start to really be Neo in the Matrix. You're reading the streams. You're not like, oh, a guy shot at me, I'm getting back in. You're like, oh, this dude is shooting at me. Oh, there came one, I'm getting back in, but I'm coming right back on this, and I'm looking downfield, and like, you basically have to put one in the pocket for me to flinch. And I'm looking at the pocket, and I know my shot's on because, dude, I've been like, I've run so many drills. I know this ball's where it needs to be, or these balls are in it. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that to you to break that down a little bit, because it's changing the way the game's going to be played here. Like, this is, if you can't do that with you guys, you're going to lose. And if you can't beat Legion, you're going to lose. You're not going to win the tournament.
Yeah. I think if you look at the past, let's just call it 6 years, right? If you look at the last 6 years, when Impact was winning, when I was on Impact and we started going on our streak, we adopted that slow communication style of game, and we forced teams into us, and we forced teams to make mistakes. Well, now the majority of teams are now starting to try to play that style. They've adopted that style. Then Dynasty came, they adopted that style. Damage adopted that style. They've always kind of been a slower team, but I think we kind of changed the game in the way that it was played originally, and then now every team is starting to adopt that style years later. Well, if you look at statistics, right, and statistically, and I don't know if these numbers are 100% correct. It's just from what I remember, the team that plays aggressive. If you look at, you've watched a lot of points. If you look at the statistics on the team that plays aggressive against a team who sits back, that team wins 66% more games, right? This is just statistically. You can't look at the games that where both teams are playing slow. Look at the game against X Factor against Impact, where it was like 1-0 and they had like a 12-minute game. You can't look at the statistics don't ring true for games like that, right? It's when one team is playing,
That was
in the
Heat,
pocket or
Heat and X Factor.
yes,
Yeah, Heat and X Factor.
yeah. So so with that being said, it's 66% more, and this is how it was sold to me, right? And I have been playing a slower style for a while now. It's just how I've played, what I've adopted. It's what I'm familiar with, and for me, it was a challenge to go. Okay, well, I think I can play this style of game too. I think I can do both. I'm good enough to do both, and it was more of a challenge to me. So that's originally why I got on the team. And I truly believe that the reason why the word meta exists in sports and esports and things like this, and why metas change often, because once a specific style comes into play, a team will come in only trying to beat that style, right? And this is how metas then are created, because one, and this is the whole rock paper scissors method, right? There's just we're lacking a scissors right now. It's 95% rock, right? And that rock is that defense, right? And we're playing more of like a paper now, but there's no scissors yet. There's no scissors of, okay, well, how do you beat attack? You know, people are starting to figure out, okay, how do you beat the defense? Right. And teams have thought about that because this is how people have been playing for years, right? Since Impact went on their streak. And now people are trying to beat that defense, but there's no way to beat that attack just yet. So I think that still currently the meta is still defensive, in my opinion. The meta is still very much defensive, and it has not even switched or adjusted, even though I've been on many shows now talking about, how we're trying to play a more aggressive mindset and things like that. And I even talked to Mike Bianca about this briefly. But I think that from a coaching standpoint, the coaching mindset hasn't really adopted this meta game yet. And this meta game is so huge and I brought this up before in esports, right? It is the one word that is constantly thrown out all the time. Because without getting too deep into it, you have patches, you different heroes change, champions change, so the game changes constantly, and you have to learn this new method of playing. So metas change, right? For us, there's no patch notes. There's no, hey, unless there's bunker changes, right? That would be our patch notes. Our patch notes would be a bunker change, or hey, we don't want bounce shots anymore. And I've said this a million times. The best way to get rid of bounce shots is they could literally just put Velcro on the part that you can bounce shot, and voila, no more bounce shots. It's literally gone. Like a sticky
sandpaper
Velcro
on there.
They could,
that's it.
Or sandpaper. It doesn't matter. You could get rid of bounce shots literally like this. They don't want to. Clearly, they don't want to, and they think that it's a part of the
sponsor's patch. It could just be Hertz on that little one area.
It could be. It would be so easy to get rid of bounce shots, and I've been literally saying this for years. I personally, I love bounce shots. I use them all the time because why wouldn't I? I would be stupid not to use bounce shots because it's a part of the game, right? But if they put these patches or put these sandpaper or the Velcro, then the meta changes. Right now, you have to learn new different styles. I guarantee you get rid of bounce shots, the defensive game disappears. Right. The reason why defensive games work is because you can shoot these cross shots. You can shoot these bounce shots without ever being seen. You can just hide behind your bunker, shoot a bounce shot. How can I fight you or how can I move if I'm just going to die by looking into this? Right? You would instantly eliminate defensive style. And the reason why defensive styles adopted is because of bounce shots. It's literally what changed the game. As soon as teams started using bounce shots, and other teams were like, bounce shots are stupid. I'm not going to use them. Well, those guys, they weren't winning. Like all the teams that were winning were using bounce shots, and that's the meta. It's constantly changing. It changes a little bit slower because, like I said, we don't have our patch notes, right? There's no champions that can be changed or nerfed or buffed. The only thing that can change for us is, something like getting rid of bounce shots, changing the way the layouts are, or whatever it is. That's the way we change the flow of the game. Or, which is, I believe, what we're trying to do, we change the whole mentality of the game and say, you know what? We're not going to play this style. We're not going to adopt this style like every other team is. We're going to try to just beat this specific style and nothing else. Because maybe our style doesn't work against paper, right? In the rock, paper, scissors scenario. Maybe it doesn't work against this, but if someone figures out how to beat that, then, then defense comes back around. And I can literally ramble about this all day because metas change so much and so constantly that it's important to understand that what we're trying to do is beat the defensive style, right? And I think that we've shown that we can beat that. Does it work every single time? No, absolutely not. Do I think that we can win every single event doing this specific thing? Probably not, right? That would be silly to think that. But the way that the meta is right now, it's defensive. We're trying to beat that defensive mindset with a mindset of our own. And I think that when that changes and people go, you know what, man, this defensive game's just not working anymore. I'm not saying they go to an attack game, but they will try to adopt different styles of what that looks like. How do we beat this? Can we still beat this defensively? Right? And these are what coaches need to ask themselves. These are what players need to ask themselves. And this is the dilemma I'm constantly having all the time. Okay, how do you beat this? Right? How do you beat defense? How do you beat this attack? Is it something completely different? Do we need to change what our defensive looks like? Do we need to change? Do we need to adopt a little bit of an aggressiveness? And this is so like I said, I could talk about this for hours because it's not set in stone, right? Someone can say something so out of left field. And with metas, there's no stupid ideas, because one little idea of, man, I didn't think of that, can turn the whole tide of a Sunday, right? And I think a lot of people, coaches including and players including, I don't think they think about this enough, right? I think people have gotten so comfortable with, because we've had the same people, right, in the sport, that consistently do well, that are always there on Sunday. So you know how to play against these guys. Coaches have adopted ways. Okay, this is how they're going to play. I know how this coach plays. I know how these players play under this coach. It's not hard to figure that out. You've watched a lot of paintball. I'm sure you know very well that some teams play certain styles of games, and they don't know how to play anything else. They just don't, right? So with that being said, I think people have gotten so content on, okay, well, we know what they're going to do, so we're going to continue to do what we do because we know that what we do is going to beat what they do, right? And then you have like that back and forth, but people have gotten so stubborn, and we know that we can beat their style better than they can by doing it this way, right? And that's how it's been the last 4 years. The same teams have been winning, right? We've kind of broken that up. It's been 3 years since another team has played, since another team has won.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
So we've broken that up. I think that if people start, and the reason why I'm so comfortable with talking about this is I believe that I want to see paintball at its highest level. To me, especially with this, this chance where we're on ESPN, I want that to continue to happen, right? So if the game is changing and every team is getting better and better and better and better and better, we're going to get better matches. We're going to get more intense games. We're going to get more people watching because people want to see these stories, right? Storytelling in sports is how you drive fans. It's how you drive them. It's not just the teams or the players. It's their story. It's how they got there. How can I relate to this player? How can you show me what this player truly is without good storytelling? Right? So it's important that there is storytelling in meta, and I'm bringing this all the way back around. This meta, the story is that people have been playing the same style the last 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, right? And that style hasn't changed. Even the new teams that come in, and I've been saying this for years, the new teams that come in, they usually surprise people at first because nobody knows how to play them yet. But then once you know how to play them, we look at this over and over and over, and stats don't lie. Once you know how to play them, it's almost impossible to lose to them ever again because they don't know anything different. And they're so afraid to change what that is because that's what got them there, right? That semi-pro team worked so hard to get to win their pro spot. They're working so hard not to lose it, right? That they're going to continue to do the same things that have worked for them previously because they're afraid to try something else. Because if we try something else and we lose our spot, right? And that's what a lot of teams have to think about. So it's very hard to change the whole mindset of what you know and how you understand and the way the game is played for many years on just a whim. Like, hey, if we try this, it could work out, but we could also lose our spot if it doesn't. And that's scary to a lot of teams, right? So we've come into a stagnant game where everyone is now adopting this style because it works, right? And so it's proven to work, and it's proven since Impact went on their run. And teams are continuing to run that style because it has worked for the last few years. And if you can play that style better than everyone else come the tournament, you will have a chance to win, right? And that's just the mindset that's been happening. So I think that people are a little bit afraid to go into this meta shifting because of that. And I've been rambling, and I'll obviously I'll give the ball back to you, but I could sit here and I could ramble about this for hours because it's so interesting. It's a very interesting dilemma.
Oh, it's a huge dilemma. I would say.
What do you think? I mean, there was a lot there.
No, I was listening. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. No, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. The one thing is that there's a difference between playing to win and playing to keep your spot. And I see some of these teams that are coming up the first thing I would say is like, oh, they're playing a certain way because they're scared to lose their spot. And I'm like, well, if you can't adapt to the changing conditions of the strategy and the tactics, then you're never going to win a tournament. And every pro team's out there essentially not just to keep their spot, but they should be trying to, and they are trying to win. And so because you guys are literally changing the game, I mean, you guys are playing so aggressive, and it's not even that, it's like the play calls too. Again, having gone back, watching it live and then going back and having to dissect it to give information to the producers so that they could try to create the best show possible. And again, make sure you tune in August 3rd at 10 p.m. And then August 4th, 1 p.m. Again, different time zones. So we can give put our best foot forward for, for the sport, because if
Is that
this works, it
Eastern?
could be really. Yeah, so it's 1 a.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Again, so third and fourth, because it'll be the fourth at
Yeah.
1 a.m. on Eastern time, and then it'll be the third 10 p.m. Western time.
Okay. Okay.
On the Ocho,
Okay.
so it's on ESPN2. Yeah, set your DVRs for that, and then let everybody know across as many people as you can that we need to get a good turnout for this, because it's really going to help paintball out. But yes, I agree with you 100% here, J-Rab, is that, yeah, dude, I mean, that's all correct. And if you can't, but it's also, and I would say is my closing thoughts here, but it's a very bold move to believe that you can go against a meta and make it work and then change the meta, because the overarch, and what do we mean by meta? It's just for this, the concept essentially is what is the overarching best practice for strategy and tactics? And the fact that
Yes.
it's not being changed by a developer, like it's not the reason why there's no notes is because it's not, yeah, sure, we can change the bunkers and that, this and that, but the league's
Yeah.
not going to give you notes like, here's the best way to play this, and then the teams aren't going to be like, here's the best way to play against us or this hero or this champion. That's what's cool about paintball. That's why you have to figure this out by yourselves. You have to do your work and figure it. So it's a bold move to go against the overarching best practice, which has worked for years and years and years, and to make it work in a way where you guys go third, first, and then change it again. And it's happened in different incarnations of our sport over time as things have changed, and we are there again. So I tip my hat and respect to you and the boys, because that starting five is holding it down, and it's been really cool to watch, and I can't wait to see, because this again sets up, like you said, I mean, dude, the reason why I have a job is, telling stories. So I'm a sucker for, great stories. Love them, and that's what I try to do is bring those things to light. And we got ourselves some great stories moving forward, and we're going to continue to tell those stories as we move through and get ready for the Windy City Major, which is going down September 13th through the 15th. Dude, J-Rap, this has been great, man. This is one of our best shows recently, dude. Thank you for being honest. Really appreciate it. You were very frank and honest about your personal struggles, about the team, about your strategy. And yeah, you guys are the team to beat, dude. So thank you so much. Anything you got teaching, any clinics or anything you want to pump up before we sign off?
No, nothing like that. Obviously, our sponsors. I mean, our main sponsor I would like to shout out to is our Chief Sergey, for giving me a chance to be on the team, for the team welcoming me and respecting me and giving me that chance. I'm extremely grateful to everyone on the team. So I would like to shout out to them. And then I guess the last shout out would be to anyone, like you said, we brought up the anxiety thing. If it's something that you're thinking about, there's no hurt in just getting a consultation, just going and just seeing somebody and talking to somebody. So those would be my final things, because if it helps one person, then it's a success in my mind.
Yeah, and again,